Now, adding three-dimensional panel lines to any model, even if it's not a semi-scale model, it adds a nice little touch. It adds interest. It makes a model stand out in a crowd. And if it's a semi-scale model, it really puts it over the top. It really is kind of the cherry on a sundae. And over the years, I've done a lot of this. I've experimented with different ways of doing it, and I've watched what other people have done. I've tried to combine all that knowledge in and some of the ideas Al Raby had and put them all down in one video so you could detail out your model in a very practical, easy way. Most of the footage is in fast forward to keep the video from getting too long, but I'm sure all the information is there. These are just some of the tips that I used over the years to do ink work, and this is on the Spitfire, the 90 Spitfire. And I would always say that most of the planes I did were similar, but I would always try to lay out what I wanted, the shape, the alignment, or when lines had to line up from the top to the bottom, lay it out with 1/8" tape and get some idea of what it's going to look like. Now remember, the whole idea of this is I want this to look realistic. Well, the top and the bottom of the wing are different, and again, I can always refer to the pictures, the manuals, or the fact that I have worked on real airplanes and I have a little bit of an idea of how they come apart and where the panel lines would be. But a Spitfire is relatively easy because there's plenty of documentation on it, and you can see the lines that go from the bottom to the top have to line up. Well, that makes it easy, but of course you don't have landing gear on the top of the wing, and you don't have other things that are similar to the machine gun covers, and everything are different. But always having that reference of looking at the books, the reference books, getting some idea to make it realistic. So the first part of anything is doing the ink work. You got to get the ink work done before you can do the shading, or really any of the other detailing, the rivets or whatever around the cockpit. Joe Adamusco had a great idea. He used to make templates out of 64th plywood for all of the hinges and the various parts. Al Raby, this is Al Raby's Mustang up in my attic, and Al had some really intricate detailing with white ink and black ink and various shading and gray and everything. Very, very creative. Now, everybody's got a different idea. Some people like to do the ink work, and in this case just shade the exhaust. Well, ink work by itself looks nice. I agree. I've done models that way, and it does add a nice dimension just having ink work, but the shading adds a little more. Now, any of the rulers that I use, the big ones, for a long line, this is going to be one of the defining lines that we're going to see. And one of the things, I put the 1/8" tape on the bottom of the ruler, about an 1/8" back from the edge where I'm going to put this. And you can always put some tape on the ruler. You see the pieces of tape that are holding it in place. If you don't have a helper, in my case, sometimes I had a helper, but most of the time I'd be working alone. This is a real flexible ruler, but again, you can see the tape. It's about an 1/8" back so that the ink doesn't run under the ruler. And that's probably just standard operating procedure. Just a small matter of reference, this is the 4th Spitfire that I made with Joe Adamusco's help. And I had accumulated on each one of the Spitfires, I had saved all the little patterns for all the little hatches, for the guns, the hinges. The Spitfire has unique hinging, and every one of these, and it was really the super handy part of the whole thing, was you could use them over and over again. Models were pretty much the same size, and I did manage to take advantage of that. But even if you had to make every one for that individual model, it's a labor of love to build these models anyway. And when you know you're at the top of the mountain and you make that final little step, it's great. And I always save these because even just knowing where all these little hatches are and all these little inspection things, and in your mind's eye, when it's done right, it makes the model look that much more realistic. And when they're three-dimensional, it really looks realistic. Now, because a lot of this is in fast forward, you can kind of see how I laid out the gun blisters and various other lines, but basically most of them came from the drawings. And most important, that the rulers all have that little 1/8" tape so that the ink doesn't bleed back. Another little trick I used is using very thick lines for panel lines, thinner lines for other things like the gun blisters, so that all of the lines on the whole airplane are not exactly the same. I think that looks a little more realistic when I look back at the way this was done. Now, combining different thicknesses of ink line from the various pens I have, riveting detail, rows of rivets, and you have those green plastic rulers have rivet dot spacing on them, various spacing. But the whole idea is not to make every line the same thickness and everything exactly the same. What happens with that? Then it looks like like a piece of linoleum. On a real airplane, the lines are, well, very different, and not all would look the same from 10 feet away, especially the hinge lines here. Trying to make it look realistic, relatively difficult. And once you have the panel lines on and they look relatively realistic, the next thing is to get the shading on. I use an airbrush, make it very low pressure so it's the slightest, foggiest little amount of paint coming out. Just touch the trigger, practice on a piece of sandpaper. You can actually tape it off, but it's easier if you just, and that's the way I do it, just let the sandpaper, just the slightest little bit of tape holding it on. And now you want all the shading to go back. So picture if the aircraft were flying, it wouldn't come forward. Any dirt, any residue is going to go backward. And in the case of, because we really don't have a choice about this, I always make the shading go from the fuselage out on both sides. Not random. It's very important that you get those two things coordinated, or your eye knows that it's not right. And the general rule is practice on a spare piece or just a flat piece of cardboard. Then when you do the model, do the smallest parts first. I always start with little rudders, elevators, anything small, the landing gear doors, till I get my technique and my pressure on the compressor and the airbrush adjusted just right. But when you add this little detail, it adds so much realism to a semi-scale model. It really adds what I think the cherry on the sundae. And you find out you can be very, very creative. You figure it out as you go along. In this case, I don't want to have the line, the whole line, have shading. I want little spots of shading, just like it would be on a real airplane. And just little spots. You think these little details don't add up? Believe me, they do. Now, even if you're not making a semi-scale airplane, these little details like adding these little shading spots, the ink being very intricate and very realistic, it adds a dimension to the model that I don't think you'd have if you didn't take this little extra step and make it more detailed. Now, when I owned my air coupe, I used to wash it from time to time, and I'd see exactly what these little shading areas are there, because the planes are made out of aluminum, and in flight it really does exactly what this airbrush does. Now, another thought, because it's a take apart plane, it makes this a lot easier than if it's a one-piece plane. And anywhere there's a joint, you can use the shading to hide the joint. Now, no matter what method you use to backmasking, I always try to use tape that's not too sticky. Sometimes you can use the same piece of tape over and over, or rub it up on a flannel shirt, another good tip. But always think to yourself when you're doing the shading, if you're wrong, it's better to have not quite enough than to have a little bit too much. And many times I've shaded a part and then said, oh, I went a little bit too far, and I liked it better. It's better to go little by little by little, sneak up on what you think the final result is. And the temptation, of course, with any ink lining or any shading, the temptation is to overdo it. If you're wrong, it's better to have a little bit not enough than too much. Now, sometimes it takes longer to do the backmasking and figure out what you want to do than actually doing the airbrushing, but in the end, I think totally well worth it. And it's just another part of modeling where you can be as creative or as exotic as you want and invent it as you go along. Now, what's good about all this is, like any paintwork, if you're not really happy with it and you've overdone the shading a little bit, you can always take and just airbrush in a little bit of red, But in this case, I think we got it just about the right amount. Make it look weathered, make it look realistic. And the final product of this came out great. And every time I go up to the Spitfire bedroom, I look at it and I think, wow, that little detailing is just, to me, well worth every minute of time. Now, I put most of this in fast forward because it really is boring to watch in real time, but I think you can tell even in fast forward just what the technique is. This is, I'm laying out the fuselage, and one by one you can stand back, look at it, go have a cup of coffee, look at it, back and forth, and when you're happy with it, and by the way, all the shading should go down, not up. You let the shading go down. So I want to thank Ray Dory. Ray, he has sent me discs that have made most of these videos possible, and luckily we still have this information for people that are still very active and wanting to find out the fine points of modeling. Whether this is a take-apart plane or a one-piece plane, this is Rich Walbridge's model, and I think it's a one-piece plane, and he did a nice job with the ink work. Larry Drawn, another beauty, but everyone is individual, and that's the beauty, I think the real beauty of the event that we all love, Control Line Stunt. It makes sense to me that you fall in love with the model of your choice, straight line stunner, semi-scale. Here's the Seafire, that had an incredible amount of detail, including a sliding cockpit, and a lot of stuff. Al Raby, when I would go to Texas, every trip I was in Texas, Al and I went back and forth exchanging ideas about control systems and ink lines and everything. Now, to be honest, one of the things I'm sad about, I really don't know who was the one that gets the credit for inventing ink lines. And if somebody would tell me that, and I'll try to correct it. I don't know. I don't even remember the first time I inked a plane. But anyway, right now it's a little bit of water under the bridge. I found out using white ink was a lot more difficult than using the black ink. The white ink was really, really a pain to use. But on a black airplane, I guess you had no choice. And on the black, the Tiger Cat, you know, think about something for a minute. The shading had to be white. So I did like a mirror image or looking in a mirror. Anyway, when I was doing the Tiger Cat, that plane has a complete carbon fiber fuselage. At every step of modeling for my whole life has always entertained me. Keith Drossel inspired me to make that canopy sliding. Other people like Joe Adamusco inspired me with their dedication to modeling. And this list could go on, but everything that I've ever tried to do in modeling, I've tried to do to the best of my ability. And in a small way, I think I've succeeded. But I've tried to do something even bigger than that, and that's the thing I'm most proud of, is that I've been able to, through the YouTube channel and through Ken Budensink giving me that first video camera in 1987, I've been able to share the part of modeling that I've learned the hard way, and now through YouTube, hopefully keeping some of it alive, keeping people, even people that are retired from modeling like myself, keeping the dream alive, keeping a flame alive, and a lot of ways to put it. Anyway, I hope you did enjoy the video. I hope you, in some way, have great memories of modeling like I do when you get to be 79. 79, I'm not that far away from being 80. Not too long from now. And thanks, guys and gals, one and all. Thank you so much for watching.